Just get my phone turned off. No distractions. Okay, Brexit, British sport. Ironically, most of British sport, most of the money that's come into it, either through national lottery funding, which is a domestic-based thing, or foreign investment from outside the EU, be it North America or the Asian markets, investing money in by buying football clubs or investing. Very interesting that. But there is a lot of foreign-based coaches and sportsmen, especially in football, and to a certain extent rugby. But for some reason in rugby it's mostly South Africans, Australians and New Zealanders who do the coaching. But we'll get on to that. It's very interesting. A lot of the players, especially football, is the main sport that is going to be affected by this, main sport. Because a lot of the players from the EU, I could name half the Man City, half the Chelsea, half the Man United sides, all come from European countries, or who are inside the EU. Their coaches, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish. I named those three clubs for that particular reason. The issue's going to be, and what's going to end up happening, and this is my thinking on this, and this is not me making it definite, is work permit system and visas again. We have it for non-EU nationals coming here to play, and you'll hear in the news, because it's transfer window starting, so-and-so's transfer has been delayed, it's in the process because of a work permit. Basically legal paperwork, saying he's allowed, he's got his details, he's allowed to play here, or work here, live here. Now, I'm going to look at a British sportsman outside the EU quickly. Go to Australia, the AFL and the NRL. Now, if you're born in Ireland, you are eligible for a British passport because of the Good Friday Agreement. If you're born in Northern Ireland, you're eligible for an Irish passport. So if you're registered as birthplace, Northern Ireland, even if your parents are English and you were just there on holiday and they just happened to burst you out in a Belfast hospital, you are eligible for an Irish passport. So this is where it gets interesting. The AFL noticed Gaelic football is a very similar sport to how they play at AFL, which is Aussie rules, which is an oval ball, round ball, but it's very similar. The games are strikingly very similar. So a lot of AFL scouts went over to the island of Ireland because Gaelic sports are also played north of the border as well. And they scouted some players and put them on professional contracts because, bear in mind, Gaelic sports, like such as hurling and Gaelic football, are still amateur, and a lot of them want to remain so for traditional purposes. But that's slowly changing. A lot of them are going to the AFL. Rugby League has attracted loads of British passport-holding players to play in the NRL. Obviously, NRL-based players have come over here to play, and I've had a debate about the NRL Super League, but this is where it gets to Brexit now. They've obviously got to go through immigration checks, work permits, but it works fine. I've not heard of one of them going, oh yeah, my work permit hasn't come through, I'm stuck in limbo. That's pretty much the system I think is going to happen. The knock-on effects for this means possibly the quality of football, for example, may go down. But the amount of British players, which people whinge about, there's not enough English players playing in the Premier League or playing in the Championship, the amount of young talent being found in local level through youth investment and academies will go up. So would that mean then that ticket prices come down or go up? It's all interesting, isn't it? These are the possible side effects of it, because we don't know what's going to happen in Brussels. That's the problem. We have obviously a lot of British skiers, cyclists and track and field athletes do a lot of training out in the Alps, Pyrenees, the Carpathian Mountains because of the altitude, and especially skiing. In the summer you want to do your runs, your cycles, your swims, but you want to be at that altitude because when you're skiing you're at that altitude, so your sport dictates that you want to train at these altitudes. They're going to be affected. Same with any winter sport, because most of the winter sports circuit takes place inside Europe. That's going to be a knock-on effect. We don't know how, positive or negative, that's going to happen. Chris Froome is an example of a sportsman who's going to be affected by Brexit. He lives in Monaco, but that comes under, I think, French jurisdiction. I don't know, Monaco jurisdiction. But he does a lot of training on the Côte d'Azur in France. So that's going to be interesting because he's resident over there as well. Very interesting. We've got several rugby players playing in the top 14 and at Catalan Dragons who have British passports. The Armitage brothers and the Bendenden in top 14. I'm not so clued up on the Catalan Dragons squad, but I know there are some British passport holders playing in that squad. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens there, because Toulouse and Catalan are in the British Super League system. So that's going to be very interesting. The top Pro 14 now. Obviously, all the Irish players are eligible for British passports, and they play for the Lions. But you've got Italian clubs in there. Forget the South Africans because they come under the visa regulations anyway. There's 2 Italian teams in the Pro 14, in Zebra and Treviso. Benetton Treviso. They're going to be affected. So it's very interesting already looking at the leagues and sports affected already. I've been going for 5 minutes. This is my 5th take on this video, by the way, because it is that much of a difficult topic to talk about. But there we go. I can see somewhere along the pre-93 visa system that we had in Europe. There was a pre-Schengen agreement, pre-Maastricht Treaty in 92, 93. You had the blue passport. People are whinging about, we should, what, passport colour doesn't really matter. Well, it doesn't. If you have the red passport, it means you have visa-free travel inside the EU. If you have a different colour passport that is not the burgundy red, you have to have your passport stamped or a visa in your hand. Simple. So yes, the colour of the passport does matter in a sense of the paperwork that goes with it. Before 93, you did have British players, especially football players, playing football in Italy, Spain, Germany and France. Kevin Keegan being an example. He played at Hamburg. Chris Waddle and Glenn Hoddle playing at Marseille. It has happened. So we've got to look at it in that context. Also look in the context of foreign players playing over here. Ozzy Ardiles and Ricky Villa were Argentinians. They had to go through the work permit and the visa process. Bear in mind, at the time there was the Falklands War and the build-up and then the conflict, and they were playing for Tottenham at the time. So there was that kind of political backdrop. They were still allowed to play here. I can see something along the systems of work permit visa for non-EU nationals applying to EU nationals. That's what I can see. Whether investment is affected, most of the investment in British sport is either from British ownership already or from outside the EU, be it North America or the Asian markets, as I've stated. It's just going to be interesting what happens to the EU nationals here and the British nationals over in the EU who ply their trade sports-wise over there. I don't know what's going to happen personally. Too much is up in the air. It's going to be interesting. It will have an effect. I think ticket prices may be affected in the Premier League by going down, because the wages will probably be less wages demanded from players. Possibly they might go up, they might go down. We'll have to see how many EU registered passport holder players want to go back to their country of origin or back play in Europe. We'll have to see on the transfers there. I can see more British talent at academy level coming through into the first team as a byproduct, which is the only positive I can really think of. And the ticket price possibly going down is the only positives I can think of, which basically means the merchandise prices go up. So really, football stays still as outpriced as ever for the 18-30 market, the market they want. On the whole, I don't see too much effect. I can see basically a few bits of bureaucracy coming in, such as paperwork and visas. That's it. That is it. How they are enforced is different, because every country has its own visa rules for different nations. But that's basically, I can see non-EU nationals queue here, EU nationals queue here, British at passport control, there'll be 3 queues. The EU will have its own special visa system. We'll put something in place, say that you get this kind of stamp, this kind of paperwork's needed, bang. That's what I can envision. That's the smart way of doing it. But we'll see what happens. How Brexit will affect it, we don't know. But looking at the growth of the Premier League, money-wise, it's insane. So we'll have to see what happens. We really do. The other 2 sports that will be seriously affected domestically here are rugby, both kinds of rugby and ice hockey. Because there's a lot of foreign players. They're the only sports that I can see being affected, and probably not as much as people think. Anyway, I'm going to leave that there because I'm now more confused since making this video than I was before. I haven't really thought about it before. I've been thinking, oh yeah, Brexit's come, will it affect sport? It will affect sport. We just don't know how. There could be some positives and some negatives. Because you've got to look at British sportsmen who are applying their trade outside the EU in Australia and New Zealand and North America and doing really, really well, and not being hindered in doing so. And they are big news stories. So if you know about the Burgess brothers at South Sydney, James Graham going from Canterbury to Penrith, there's some big names in the rugby league while playing rugby league. You've got the AFL. I'm not so clued up on all the AFL players, but there's a lot of Irish who are eligible for both passports playing in the AFL because of Gaelic football. So if you're an AFL fan, you'll be able to tell me the Irish-based national players who are playing in the AFL. In North American sport, it's different because you've got so many major league sports, and there's a scattering of British players in football, soccer if you're American football, ice hockey, and basketball. There is a scattering across the various sports. And athletics, there's a lot of British athletes who train out in America. So there is a scattering of British nationals applying their trade in North America. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know what the effects are going to be. No one does. But these are the possibilities. Some kind of visa system, some kind of work permit system for us and for them. That's what I can see. They're going to come to some very amicable agreement because it's more damaging not to. It just doesn't help that both the government and the opposition parties are all clueless in this country. They really are. They keep changing their minds on what it should be, and we need an informed debate. I've just raised this as a question. What will happen? We don't know, but here's something that could. Prices will be affected. I can see ticket prices going down. Personally going down. They might go up, they'll go down. Merchandising, up. That will be more expensive. The TV revenue will, because it's a lot of, again, outside EU investing in British football, for example, and to a certain extent other sports, the TV deals are, yeah, I can see them getting bigger, but us, the fans, not getting the benefit regardless if we're in the EU or not. When it comes to, yeah, it's going to be a work permit visa system. That's what I can see happening. And people go, oh, it's going to make it impossible to go to Europe. It's not. I remember living in Europe as a kid, having to see my mum or my grandparents getting their passport stamped with me as a child. We were literally, it took a couple of minutes. If it was that unbearable, why is my aunt still living in Italy as them? Why has she raised 4 kids in Italy, and why does she still live in that ski resort if it's that unbearable? Before she was there before the EU treaty was signed. She got married before the EU came into being, when it was the common market, or the European Economic Area. So, if it was that unbearable then, why are so many Brits gone out before the EU came into force? And why did so many British sportsmen go out to play in Europe in the 70s and 80s, especially football, if it was that unbearable? That is another question I pose. If it was that bad and that restrictive, why did Kevin Keegan, for example, Glenn Hoddle, Chris Waddle all play football for European clubs? Why did Paul Ince go play football out there? Seriously, for Inter. Again, if it's that unbearable. These are the questions I pose. Because no one seems to remember all these. People seem to forget a lot of British sportsmen in the 80s did play, and 90s did play football. Especially football players play football in European leagues. And to a reasonable level of success. Thank you very much for watching. That has left it on a very interesting note. Back in the days of the Blue Passport, many British sportsmen played in Europe, especially football. So I'm going to leave that there. Please like and subscribe, place your comments below. It's going to be a very interesting debating point. I want to hear happy, non-Aggie debate. If you were saying it's good or bad, give your reasons why without basically trolling other people, because I'll just block you, basically. Simple. Because I've had to deal with some morons on Twitter who are just ignorant fools, and they don't seem to know the full facts. But we don't know what effect Brexit will have on British sport, do we? We don't. And now this video's gone for nearly 13, 14, 15 minutes, and I'm still just as lost as I was when I first started doing it. Anyway, thanks a lot, and I'll have some more videos for you soon.